Britain will be able to set its own regulations and strike trade deals after Brexit, Theresa May vowed today. The Prime Minister made clear that having scope to diverge from Brussels rules will be a red line in the impending negotiations. The government is increasingly confident of securing a broad trade agreement with the bloc, insisting the key UK services sector must be allowed to keep operating across the continent. Ministers are expected to deploy one of Brussels' favourite phrases, by warning that the EU cannot hope to cherry-pick parts of the UK economy to trade with. However, the scale of the challenge has been laid bare after the EU's chief negotiator Michel Barnier again warned there will be no special Brexit deal for the City of London. Downing Street said 25 ministers contributed to a discussion in Cabinet today that lasted an hour and 45 minutes. The PM said it was clear what the Cabinet's objective is: a deal which secures the best possible trading terms with the EU, enables the UK to set rules that are right for our situation, and facilitates ambitious third country trade deals, the spokesman said. In a statement to the Commons yesterday, Mrs May insisted Britain will not be bound by EU rules on fishing and farming during a Brexit transition period. She also insisted that Britain wants a bespoke trade deal from the EU, and said she wanted the same level of access as the current arrangements. The bullish comments came as she defended her handling of the Brexit talks after an EU summit last week formally signed off on moving on to the next phase of negotiations. Norway is a member of the European Economic Area with near full access to the single market. But it is obliged to contribute to Brussels' coffers, and accepts most EU rules, including free movement, without getting a say in setting them. The CETA free trade deal with the EU has yet to come into force, gets rid of most tariffs on goods. However, it excludes most services and some food items, and there is an obligation to prove where goods are made. David Davis suggested this model in an interview earlier this month. It would mean taking the CETA agreement and bolting on elements like services. However, the EU has ruled this out, saying it could mean the end of the single market. Leaving on World Trade Organization (WTO) terms is the favoured option of many hardline Brexiteers. The UK would rely on basic tariff rules applicable around the globe, potentially meaning charges on exports and imports. In reality, a WTO model would require a series of smaller deals to cover areas like aviation, otherwise planes might not be able to fly to EU countries after the Brexit date. Ministers appear to be lining up behind a slow Brexit option, where the UK starts by keeping the same regulations as Brussels and gradually moves away. The approach would ease the impact on the economy of cutting ties with the EU, and could satisfy both hard Brexiteers like Mr Johnson and Mr Gove, as well as supporters of keeping closer links such as Philip Hammond and Amber Rudd. Meanwhile, some ministers are said to be urging Mrs May to stay on in Downing Street until 2021 to ensure any Brexit deal does not fall apart at the last moment. New EU regulations could be rejected by the government as they arise after the end of a move to 2-year transition period, leaving Britain free to streamline rules and become more competitive globally. She said that even though the UK is leaving the single market and customs union in March 2019, she wants access to one another's markets to continue as now during an implementation period. The EU's guidelines say that during any transition period the UK would have to comply with the bloc's trade policy, preventing it from striking its own deals with other countries. But Mrs May said the UK wants to sign agreements which would come into force after the strictly time-limited period has ended. We will prepare for our future independent trade policy by negotiating, and where possible signing trade deals with third countries, which could come into force after the conclusion of the implementation period, she said. The Prime Minister said there is a shared desire between the UK and EU for rapid progress on an implementation period before any UK-EU deal comes fully into effect. But Tory backbenchers including Jacob Rees-Mogg are demanding that Mrs May take a stand against the EU's hard line, saying that meekly signing up to it would make Britain no more than a vassal state, a colony, a serf of the European Union.